Now, if you start thinking in terms of a product manager, right? What are the key responsibilities of a PM? There's a lot of them, right? A lot of people talk about, requirements development, management, product marketing, product design, and agile and product planning and lots of things. But fundamentally, there are three responsibilities for a PM. Number one is what I call as building the right product along with building the product right? So if you come from an engineering background or implementation or delivery background, most of your focus is on building the product right? However, a more important aspect to consider before you get there is building the right product, because you don't want to build a product, something that people don't want. You may have built it in a fantastic way, but if you don't have enough number of people who actually want to use that product because they have a need to address, because they have a pain point to solve, then that product is a flop. And believe me, many products fail, right? I have worked in probably a dozen very large scale projects and products. Just a handful of them succeeded. And that's the nature of product development, right? I happen to be in products that, core Java. I'm sure many of you are familiar with that. So I was part of a team in Sun Microsystems, was part of that. And, also was part of a team that actually sent rovers to Mars, which is even more fascinating, and then spent considerable amount of time in enterprise communication and collaboration. Now, in all these things, one thing I've learned is you really need to de-risk a lot of things upfront before you start building the product. So this is a very important part. And what this involves essentially is what we call as customer insighting, right? Now, many of you may not know what this means. It's basically understanding your customer, their journeys, their context, and figuring out something that other people have not figured out, right? And then solving that in a better way than the others. Let me give you a very interesting example, right? So there is this very powerful story called the $300 million button, right? It's a very interesting story, a real story this is. I'm sure many of you are shoppers online, you use e-commerce products or applications to buy things online. Now I'm talking about 5-6 years ago, where there are several e-commerce products like this, not just Amazon and Flipkart, but many of them. And this is a very large company in the US which had an e-commerce presence. Normally, if you want to buy some products, right, you go to that website or mobile app or mobile website on your device, and then you search for the product that you're looking for, you find it, you add it to the cart, and you probably add more than one, and then you start the checkout process, right? I'm sure you'll realize, or you remember, when you actually, let's say you are not signed into that e-commerce portal, right, the shopping portal. Often what happens is when the step where you actually start checking out, usually there is a pop-up that comes up and says, hey, do you want to log in with your account? If you don't have an account with us, register with us. There is a register button there, right? So just like that, this particular e-commerce site had a small pop-up that put login and password on one side. Please log in so that we know your preferences and we know your payment methods, favorite payment methods, so that the checkout process could be really seamless. Or there is a register button on the side that said, if you're not a customer yet, log in, create an account, and then we will save your preferences, right? Now, of course, with any login, interaction, there is a forgot password link as well. Now, it sounds very innocuous, right? It looks very innocuous. We have seen this screen many times in many e-commerce pages. But the product managers in the company were noticing that more than 70% of the people who added some product into the cart are not going through with the purchase. The purchase is not complete. So there is a lot of discussion about what's going on. They seem to be interest, they seem to be intent. Price, it doesn't seem to be a problem. They have actually added to the cart. So what is going on? Now, there are two ways to look at it, right? One, you can sit in your comfort of your office and start looking at data and analyzing that. But a more interesting way is to actually, put yourself in the shoes of the customer or walk with that customer in that journey, possibly in a usability test or something. And this product manager, one person, actually spoke to 15 people who went through that journey and came with some very interesting insights. The insight was, Most of the people don't even remember whether they have created an account in this particular e-commerce page or not. So they don't know what email they've used. Apparently, many of us, on an average, each of us have at least 3 email accounts. So I don't even remember which email that I gave to create an account here. So my natural reaction is click on the forget password, right? And the data showed on their side, there were 160,000 forgot password clicks every day, right? Now that's a whoppingly high number. On the other hand, that register button, a lot of people clicked on that. And when you click on it, there's a simple form that comes up, right? Your name, your email, and your password. And a lot of people are just not doing that. So essentially, people are adding items to their cart. And this particular thing seems to be a barrier or a constraint to move forward. So when the designers and the product managers sat down together and used this insight, they made one very simple change on that pop-up. Instead of the register button, they just changed it to continue, right? And they put one simple text saying that you don't have to register with us, just continue with your shopping. But if you would prefer that we save your preferences, you can register later. That's it. With that change, every month the sales increased by $15 million. In annual sales increased by $300 million. And that's why it's called a $300 million button. Now, how did that happen? It did not happen by gut, by instinct or anything. It happened through deep customer insighting. And that's a very important skill set, right? So customer insights is a very, very powerful thing and very important thing for product managers. Finding the right champions. Now, a lot of you in companies may have good ideas, right? You have really cool ideas, either in the product or your customers. Hey, can we build this? Can we do that? And all of that stuff. But that's not enough. You have to find the right set of people who will sponsor it, who will, initiate it, who will fund it, who will support it, and all of that. These could be product heads, this could be sales leaders, this could be your executive leadership, or bring in the customers as well, right? So finding the right champions is another big area where product managers spend time, and they should be spending time, right? It's a very, very high impact area. And of course, finally, when you're building anything, whether it's a new feature in a current product or different products, the new products that you're proposing, a business plan is super important, because you're talking about spending enormous amount of time, resources, people in building something that you hope to get returns on it. So you need to be able to forecast what those projections would be, what those revenues would be. Now, you will not be accurate, but this is a super critical skill. Again, not for every product manager, but somebody who actually can create a significant impact in the organization at a certain grade. And I'll talk about what those potential grades are and everything, right? So key responsibilities, I think these are the 3 most important ones. If this excites you, right? If this is something that you really want to be in, then product management is absolutely the right path for you.